because we haven't had you really on the podcast before to talk about this, and it's really interesting association that you've put together. But tell us, I guess, where the initial idea came from.
Okay.
Since you're the founder, yes.
So I was working for a large carrier in northeastern Wisconsin.
Okay.
Orange trucks, so that tells you. And
Yeah.
I was manager of recruiting retention programs. And so that was corporate level initiatives to attract and retain non-traditional groups. And I have to say that at that time there weren't retention managers. You know, we're talking 2006, I think.
Yeah.
And so my job was to do the research on returning military, Hispanics, seniors, and women. So I started doing my research, and I thought, well, women just want a safe place, and we had our own operating centers, things like that.
Right.
And at the time, I was getting my pilot's license, so I belonged to a women's aviation association.
Oh, okay.
And I thought, well, there's an association for female pilots. Why isn't there an association for female drivers, or not just drivers? Because the pilots association was for everyone involved in aviation, women.
Yeah.
So I really set it up like women in aviation, and I put together an amazing board of directors, very influential women, and got an attorney, filed all the paperwork, and in March of 2007, it was born.
Nice.
And here we are, almost 16 and a half years later,
Yeah.
8,000 members in 10 countries.
Wow, that's incredible.
And last year at our conference, we had almost 1,800 attendees.
Wow. Very
So it's
nice.
really grown.
Yes, yeah. Congratulations on all the success. Definitely. So,
Thank you.
So, I mean, tell us a little bit about, I guess, the association in general. I mean, obviously, it's focused on women in the industry. But tell us kind of like what are some of the goals? What are you able to accomplish? I mean, how are you supporting females within the industry?
So the goal is to be a resource, to provide information, not just on drivers, but on all women in supply chain. So why do women leave? What makes women come in? What do women bring to the table differently? Women are more, for example, women are more risk averse.
Right.
So you want a risk averse person in your truck, but also how does that apply to a boardroom? Especially in mergers and acquisitions and decisions and things like that. Women make decisions differently, more collaborative, team-oriented, will actually expand the options instead of narrowing them and take longer to make a decision. So it's getting the industry to understand what women bring to the table, why they need to hire more women, and how to do that, and why women leave. So we do a lot of research, a lot of surveys, focus groups, listen to our members, and come out with white papers. But we also have, the convention is coming up in November.
Okay.
And lots of great speakers. It's a very informative and networking type event. And one of the things that surprised me about last year was we have a participation award, and Amazon won by sending 74 people to the conference.
Wow.
Where else are you going to find a conference where someone sends that many people?
Yeah.
So obviously it's a learning experience.
Yeah.
So we really want to be a resource and help the industry better understand how to attract and retain women.
Interesting. And I guess like from for the conference, I mean, since you said it's coming up next month in November, right? When is it? So people know.
November 13th, 14th, 15th, I think it is. Sorry.
Okay.
I think it's 13th, 14th, 15th, something like that.
All right. Well, if it's different, we'll put it out there in our newsletter or something for you. So I mean, from perspective of somebody that might be interested in attending, I mean, who are really the attendees that you're focused on having coming to the conference?
So the attendees we have different tracks. So it could be CEOs of companies.
Okay.
A lot of women are taking over their trucking companies from their dads.
Yeah.
Used to be Smith and Sons, and now it's lots of daughters.
Smith and daughters.
So, so CEOs, also lots of women from manufacturing companies, so engineers from the OEMs. We also have a lot of women who are working for trucking companies who are working their way up.
Right.
In the supply chain arena. Warehousing, we have women who own truck dealerships, women who own truck driving schools. We have a driver track.
Yeah.
So it really depends on where you are in supply chain and what you want to learn. And then if you attend the conference in person, 2 weeks later we'll have the virtual event replayed, so that if you miss like a breakout session, you can watch it again
you can
later.
see it at any time. Interesting. That's really a great tool to have, and I think that, I mean, that's one of the great things about technology, right? We're able to leverage these resources a little more and get it out to a wider market. And like you said, if there's 2 sessions at the same time that you're like, oh, which one am I going to pick? Like, you can watch the other one later. So really great stuff, and I think it's really interesting what you're doing. And I guess maybe the big question is, right, so where are we now? You started this in 2007, you said, right? So, I mean, where are we now in 2023 in terms of like having that inclusivity of females and women within the industry?
So in 2007, nobody cared about gender. Nobody. I would go to talk to trucking companies and they'd say, well, Ellen, we just hired the best person. And nobody had data. They didn't even know how many of their drivers were women. Now, everybody's looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion. In fact, I'm on a panel this afternoon for DE&I. And so the buzzword is, how do we attract and retain non-traditional groups? And so the vision that I had 16 and a half years ago is now being realized by all these companies saying, we get it. We see what women bring to the industry. Now help us better understand how we bring them in, how do we attract and retain them. So the biggest difference I've seen in 16 and a half years is that companies are actually realizing the value women bring. And not that they didn't realize the value, they just felt like they could treat everyone the same. But it's not a level playing field.
Yeah.
It's not. And so, because the environment was built by men for men, the workplace, and so now we need to adapt. Like, for example, one of the topics was for moms who are pumping milk and driving truck, with inward-facing cameras. Now, 16 years ago, would you have thought, we need to accommodate moms who are pumping breast milk for their infants?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, no. Yeah. But now, especially with the cameras and things like that, I mean, and technology in general, I mean, it's very important to have those understandings because, there's different things that are going on, right? Obviously. So, I mean, it's really interesting to see, and it's great that you're giving a place to, I think, for these women to, be able to understand the industry better and giving them resources as well. And, if we're looking at companies that are, looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion, how do they go about, improving on that side? I mean, what are some of the things that really they can take big steps and make big strides in that?
So the biggest thing is asking. I will be invited to company events where they'll bring their female drivers in, or they'll bring female executives or safety managers, and the drivers will say, well, I don't like going to that warehouse because they don't let me use the restroom. And the management is like, well, we didn't know that, and it's like, did you ever ask? And did you ever ask, hey, do you need a women's cut shirt, a uniform? I mean, that, and what facilities can we make available for you? So asking the women in your organization and saying, how can we attract more women, and what can we do to better understand what your needs are?
Very interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think it's such an important thing. I mean, to just ask, right? I think if you start to just say this must be okay, nobody's saying anything, well,
you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
So if you come at it from a perspective, and we all do it, we all have unconscious bias. So we think everyone's experience is like ours, but then when you find out that somebody's dealing with something that, wow, I hadn't thought about that. Then, but they need to tell you that. But you need to be open to ask them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why it's so important to talk to your employees, engage with your employees and your vendors, suppliers, drivers that come to your building frequently. I mean, all those things, it's great to understand all those different points and have not only those broader conversations, but also the personalized, one-on-one conversations too, because maybe it's a more personal issue, right, that needs to be addressed. So, those things I think are really important. It's great that you're giving those highlights to companies too, to be able to understand that.
And you can't treat everyone the same.
Yeah.
And even now, bringing in the LGBTQIA community, we had a panel last year and it was very well attended, and I kind of laughed and I said, what trucking event has a panel with LGBTQIA? And there was 80 or 90 people in the room.
Oh, wow.
And so again, I'm going to say to this industry, we need to ask a lot of questions, ask how we can be more gender diverse. And yes on age diverse, yes on ethnic diversity, but my passion is gender diversity. So, but this, the trucking industry has been typically white males. Yeah. We're changing that.
Okay. That's good. Yeah. And I'm curious too, from, we talked a little bit from the company perspective, but what about the individual perspective? If there's some women that are interested in getting into the industry or just starting in the industry, what's the best advice you have for them?
So we track questions that people call us and ask. And we have a new driver portal, which I'm really proud of. And on the driver portal, there are videos, there are drivers talking, there are every question that people call and ask us, we will do the research and we'll get it up there. Like recently, one of the big questions is, can I have a felony and get a CDL? And so we did the research, put it up there, and Yes, you can.
Okay.
But it depends on what you're hauling and where you're hauling. So if you're hauling trash, they don't care if you have a theft background.
Yeah.
You know,
you can steal that trash.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you have maybe a child, pedophilia, then they're going to keep you out of the residential areas, keep you, but
I see.
But it really depends on what your felony was for, and who you're hauling, what you're hauling. Obviously, you can't go into Canada, and you can't haul government munitions, and you can't get a twit card to go to the port. So there are restrictions, but there are jobs available that,
Very interesting. Yeah. Very interesting to know kind of those details that I guess you wouldn't really just know in general, right? So it's great to have that resource.
Well, it's interesting to see what kind of questions they're asking, because when people call and they say, well, can you help me understand this, or can you, and that's, we want to be the resource, and it doesn't cost them anything. You can go to our driver portal, anyone can go there, male and female, and get a lot of answers. And we also have a scholarship foundation to help pay for CDLs, also safety training, diesel tech, and then any women working in the industry who want to advance their careers, we call it the leadership scholarship, and those scholarships are available to this industry as well.
Great stuff, and definitely very great to talk to you here and get some more information on this. I know we didn't get to dive too deep on our panel at Home Delivery World on this, so it was really great to talk to you and have you come by the booth and give us all this great information about the resources that you're offering. If people are interested to learn more, what's the best way to do that?
Easy, womenintrucking.org. It's a nonprofit, so .org, and it's funded by dues. So you can sign up and become a member, and the dues are as low as $10 or $15 for a student, up to $1,100 for a large company.
Very nice. So, Ellen, thank you so much for that, and thank you so much for stopping by, and hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you, Kevin. It's good to see you again.
You too, absolutely.
All right. Take care.
Have a good one.